Let's talk about franchises. Have you ever seen a movie, heard an album, or played a game so bad that the next one couldn't help but be better? Sometimes the bar gets set so low that even the slightest jump makes a huge difference. Take Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, both the movie and the video game. Fans of the novel had mixed feelings about the adaptation, and the game was widely panned. But because that entry was such a low point, the next installments in both film and gaming felt like major improvements. Now, think about that concept when you hit rock bottom. If your foundation is solid, your next effort is bound to seem better. Now, let's apply that logic to Mortal Kombat. At the turn of the century, the franchise was on a downward spiral, with 3 consecutive games receiving mixed to negative reactions. On top of that, Mortal Kombat Annihilation got panned, and the spin-off shows weren't doing much better. The Mortal Kombat brand was effectively put on ice. It would be 2 years before the series would make its return, this time stepping into a new generation and fully stepping into the 3D universe. Welcome to episode 7 of the Mortal Kombat Takeover. Today we're going after 2 deadly sorcerers in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance.
Finish her! Finish him! Fatality!
If you're new here, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're here. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. In case you didn't know, I'm currently hosting the Mortal Kombat Takeover, covering the Mortal Kombat games up to Mortal Kombat X in reference to Mortal Kombat 2, the movie dropping this year. At the same time, with Grand Theft Auto 6 on the horizon, I'm also diving into Rockstar games, including Max Payne, Bully, and of course, Grand Theft Auto itself. So if that sounds like your kind of content or just need something to listen to while you work or sleep, go ahead and mash the subscribe button so you never miss an upload. We are very close to reaching 5,000 subscribers, and we're even closer to reaching my goal of 10,000 subscribers this year. And if you enjoy this video, hit the like button so the algorithm can push it out to more people. With that said, let's dive into this. If this is your first Mortal Kombat retrospective, let me give you a quick recap so you can fully understand where the franchise stood at this point. Back in 1992, John Tobias and a group of his closest friends pitched the game to Bally Midway. At first, the company was skeptical, but they eventually greenlit the project, giving birth to the Mortal Kombat franchise. Right out of the gate, Mortal Kombat made a name for itself as the bad boy of the arcade scene. The game sparked massive controversy, with politicians calling it too violent and a bad influence on kids. This backlash led to the creation of the ESRB rating system. But rather than hurt the franchise, all the negative publicity only fueled its success. When Mortal Kombat 2 hit the market, it was a massive hit, becoming the highest grossing arcade game of 1994. At this point, Mortal Kombat was at its peak. There was a movie in the works, live action tours, and merchandise flying off the shelves. But while this controversy was nothing new for the series, the developers weren't prepared for what came next: legal action from the actors who portrayed the characters. This behind-the-scenes drama led to major cast changes in Mortal Kombat 3, with several iconic characters being cut. The backlash forced Midway to re-release the game twice. First as Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and later as Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which brought back every character up to that point. Despite the drama, Mortal Kombat 3 was still a massive success. However, while the first 3 games marked the franchise's rise, the late 90s saw its fall from grace. In 1997, Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero launched and was widely criticized for its brutal difficulty. Even though it sold well, it was a sign of trouble. The game was meant to build hype for Mortal Kombat 4, which would be the last Mortal Kombat title to hit arcades and the franchise's first step into the 3D era. Then came Mortal Kombat Special Forces, the game that changed everything. and not in a good way. Announced in 1997 while Mortal Kombat 4 was still fresh, this game had potential, but in 1999 during development, John Tobias, the very guy who pitched Mortal Kombat back in 92, left Midway. Without his vision, Special Forces was reworked into something almost no one could defend. The game got no rollout, no press release, not even a behind the scenes. When it finally released in 2000 at the tail end of PlayStation's life cycle, it bombed so badly that the Mortal Kombat franchise was officially put on hold. Now that we're all caught up on Mortal Kombat's long journey, let's talk about Deadly Alliance. If you didn't know, talks about Mortal Kombat 5 started as far back as April 1998 with an announcement in Gamer Pro magazine. The article stated, Midway has confirmed that two of its hottest arcade franchises are already ramping up with sequels. NFL Blitz 98 improves upon the raucous original by increasing the number of human participants to 4. Meanwhile, it should prove as no surprise to anyone that Mortal Kombat 5 is officially in the works, this time based on Midway's Zeus 2 hardware, the still evolving successor to Mortal Kombat 4's circuitry. So even back then, it was clear that Mortal Kombat 4 wouldn't be the final entry in the franchise. In fact, during promotion of MK4, when asked about the future of the series, Dave Mikatich confirmed that Mortal Kombat 5 was already in development. Just take a look at this.
Very cool. What does the future hold now for Mortal Kombat? What are you guys working on next? Is there an MK5, Dave?
Definitely, MK5.
Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned in my recap, Mortal Kombat was in a rough spot. Mythologies in Mortal Kombat 4 didn't do the franchise any favors. Then came Mortal Kombat Annihilation, a disaster of a movie, followed by Special Forces, which saw John Tobias exit Midway altogether. After all these missteps, the franchise needed to stop, at least from the public's perspective. The only exception was Special Forces, which was already deep in development. Meanwhile, Mortal Kombat 4 made its way to home consoles in 1998, marking the series' last major release for a while. But even though it seemed quiet on the surface, things were still moving behind the scenes. To the public, the next entry was still believed to be called Mortal Kombat 5. Magazine articles kept the name alive as rumors spread. Then, at E3 2001, fans finally got some real news. Jeff Greenson, who had a first-hand look, described the reveal. Behind closed doors, Midway revealed a few bits of information regarding the next installment of the Mortal Kombat series. We witnessed a short video clip shown exclusively to select major press outlets, which consisted of a few live action sequences of the MK Dragon symbol in different dark and electric settings. Fire was a major element in the clip, appearing in the form of torches and dripping candles around MK Dragon symbols. The clip also showed drops of blood hitting a scroll and numerous shots of actors showing their open palms, signifying the number 5 in one hand was actually branded with an MK Dragon. At the end, a close-up of the new in-game Scorpion was displayed for a split second. Unfortunately, the shot was not long enough to make a lasting impression. Lastly, Midway disclosed that the game should be referred to as Mortal Kombat in an effort to revitalize the series. Midway is contemplating calling the 5th installment simply Mortal Kombat to signify the renewal of the series. Finally, Midway mentioned that more information on the next Mortal Kombat will be revealed soon. We'll post some shots of Midway's booth at midnight tonight. So at this stage, Mortal Kombat's first steps into new hardware were initially planned under the simple title Mortal Kombat. Keep this in mind because this approach to naming the series will come back in a future installment, but that's a topic for another video. During development, Midway made a bold decision. This new Mortal Kombat entry would not be released in arcades. Instead, it would go straight to home consoles. At the time, it was seen as a radical move for the franchise, but from a business perspective, it made sense. Arcades were declining and development costs were rising. Ed Boon later reflected on this shift, saying, "So we published the home version of Mortal Kombat 4, and then I remember us kind of raising the question, should we just go directly into the home for the next Mortal Kombat game?" And we spoke to our arcade distributors who for years had already been saying how much the market had gone down, how expensive these games were, and how our hardware was getting more expensive. So after talking with them, we made a difficult decision to skip the arcades and go directly into the home. With this new approach, Midway had to find different ways to build hype for the game. To do this, Ed Boon launched Noob.com, a website where he teased Mortal Kombat 5 and included articles mentioning the upcoming game. Meanwhile, Midway hosted exclusive events showing off early footage to generate excitement. The buzz was real. In the November 2001 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, the magazine covered one of these reveals, writing, "It's been a long time since the word fatality was uttered in a fighting game. Midway aims to correct that in 2002 with a new installment of its popular mid-90s fighter Mortal Kombat. Ed Boon, co-creator of the series, and his team are hard at work on the 5th installment, but whatever you do, don't call it MK5. The title is simply, drumroll please, Mortal Kombat. Fans wouldn't find any friendships or babalities here. It's being pitched as a complete reworking of the game, bringing it back to its more violent roots. New characters will join familiar faces like Scorpion, Liu Kang, and Kano. And yes, there will be lots of blood. At a recent Midway event, we saw a short but promising clip of Scorpion doing some warm-up moves with a real-time 3D environment. Since Midway has exited the arcade business, the new MK will debut on consoles. Specifically, platforms are to be determined. Also on the slate, a Game Boy Advance MK. Prepare yourself. By the time E3 2002 rolled around, the rollout of the next Mortal Kombat was in full swing. One major change? The game's title had officially been shifted from just Mortal Kombat to Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. To help promote the game, the American rock band Adema recorded a song titled Immortal and even created a music video featuring Scorpion. Fans got their first taste of the song at E3 in 2002, where it received largely positive reactions. But the real highlight of the event was a prototype showcase which demonstrated just how much Deadly Alliance had evolved from Mortal Kombat 4. The E3 prototype featured returning characters like Scorpion, Sonya Blade, Jax, Quan Chi, Sub-Zero, and Shang Tsung, alongside two new fighters, Li Mei, and a character initially referred to as Blind Kenshi. The demo generated strong buzz, and an IGN interview at the time captured the excitement. Mortal Kombat 4 was a guilty pleasure of a 3D fighter, fast and fun, but comparatively shallow to other fighters available. Deadly Alliance, still shrouded somewhat in mystery, promises to deliver a much deeper fighting experience. Full movement in 3D, string combos, different character moves, new fatalities, super improved visuals, and more. Given that the game is just as quick and intuitive as past incarnations, we can't think of a single reason video game junkies won't eat this one up when it debuts later this year. With a strong theme song, a solid marketing rollout, and positive early impressions, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance was set up for success. A few tweaks were made before release. Blind Kenshi was simply renamed to Kenshi, the character select screen was redesigned, and more finishers were added. Finally, on November 22nd, 2002, players got their hands on Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, officially bringing the franchise into the 3D era.
The typical day in Mortal Kombat starts with me trying to get in as early as possible. Most of the other guys in the team work late into the night, and in the morning I can get a few uninterrupted hours to program in the character's moves and plan things out for the rest of the day.
Well, he takes his hat off, basically throws it, sticks in the other guy's face. Then he kind of staggers there for a little while, falls back on his back, lays there twitching. And Kung Lao comes there and he lifts his foot up, steps on the guy's stomach, the hat flies up, he grabs it, and goes into like a cool pose.
Then, starting at about 9 or 10, most of the others start pouring in. And from that point on, the insanity begins.
Hello, Steve.
Hey. What's going on?
Oh, that was cool. Wow, you did that all like last night or something?
Yeah.
I like that. I finished the Shang Tsung.
Cool.
Whatever that is.
Just trying to get the whipping right.
It looks cool when it goes back in his chest.
My main role on the team is background design. You have the very European Gothic flying buttress and the very Asian tower top. I made this single element, which I'm going to repeat. Right now you can see I've got textures on the model, but they're merely placeholder textures.
We got these hook swords. I don't know who's getting that, maybe Movado. Just a regular staff. And they're all taped up, so when we capture, we get the Tonfa. The Tonfa. The sai, of course you gotta have the sai. The regular broadsword. There's more laying around everywhere else. So.
Welcome to Vogelland, where I'm doing Shang Tsung's fatality. I guess each time he hits, like, I think souls come out. You know, and go into Shang Tsung each time, or each time they go up in the air. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work. I just know what I have to do animation-wise. And Ed's going to say, okay, now the souls come out, and now they don't.
Can you show me right where she makes impact, when she kicks him? Right here, you can stop. You don't even need him to do anything. Just don't even have him do any impact. This, if you can hand animate so she, you know, the impact repels her away. It's like a jerk like that, or we could do it in the game.
Cyrax is going to grind him up kind of like a blender. His doors are going to open again, and body parts and blood and ripped up flesh is going to come pouring out of his chest at the end. Tony's actually doing the bloody stumps and bloody pieces.
I do a lot of the whatever effects is needed for someone if they're getting, say, cut in half or something like that. This would overlay on top, and this part up here I haven't done it yet. Just kind of be the spinal column, so you get 2 in 1 here. You get a lot of good use of texture space.
What experience do you have that would qualify you as motion capture talent?
Rolling.
Start now.
A little more motion.
They will be unstoppable. You must stop this deadly alliance.
This was the acid bath. This is a concept drawing, and basically I wanted these statues here that had these churning bowls of acid inside it. And it's kind of like a Buddha, but demonized a little or something. It's a close-up, a head study. They would just gush out this vomit, this acid out of their mouth at the end of the round for a background fatality. It's tedious. I'm trying to limit your geometry and still try to get a lot of detail. Blah.
And I don't think he should have these subtle things. It should be like, ah. Making a video game today is almost nothing like when we worked on the first Mortal Kombat in 1991. Mortal Kombat 1 had 1 programmer, 2 artists, and a sound designer. That's it. 4 guys. Whereas on Deadly Alliance, we have a team of over 50 people. We've been lucky enough to get some of the most talented people in the video game business. And on any given day, it's amazing how many different parts of the game are being worked on at the same time. A lot of what I do involves non-stop bouncing from office to office, checking out character and background designs, as well as all the technical hurdles we have to overcome. There's a lot of issues to deal with in producing this game for 3 systems simultaneously.
So do you want, Tony said he thinks he could probably do all the characters in a day or 2 with 4 levels of damage. But
Really?
Yeah, just doing faces.
You think you can do all characters in a day or two?
I bet you I could.
Oh, I just
I would make
cutting and
a,
pasting it?
yeah, I cut and
Oh,
paste
okay.
same scars and stuff. Doing a damage test. I did a beat up, and tried doing a beat up version of Sub-Zero and Li Mei.
We're testing adding damage to players' faces. You can see a sample of the wounding on Sub-Zero and another character.
Man, that looks like.
If you want to see it the bad way, spin it around.
Oh, is that? It's like a new texture map for Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that looks awesome.
You know that some of those images actually look better at 128. Because when you have that much data to scramble.
How's that coming?
Right now, I can give you 3 levels, Johnny. Your Sonya's clean face. And this is level 1, just a few bruises and cuts. 2, I imagine, is the level that you're going to see the most in the game. And then 3 should be like just insane, just over the top. Just
Looks good, though.
Yeah, that's a weird. No, I mean, I think it's cool enough that that it's worth the effort. You know.
Brutal.
Yeah.
You want for lunch today?
I think I need to eat.
Let's go get Tony or something like that.
Good. Hoagie's good.
We're doing Li Mei's Fatality, and John needs the Maya model.
You know, if it can have the texture maps too, that'd be cool.
Okay. Oh. That's even the closest one.
Usable?
Yeah.
Alright, I'll give him to Dan when he comes in there.
Cool. Thanks.
So it has digits in it, but that's what I'm showing.
Right.
Right.
That's the way. Oh, there you go. Look at that.
And here's our test your mic problem. Warm-up animations.
Go on, Jax. You can do it, Jax.
Oh!
Today's a motion review, and then at the end of it, I'll show you stuff for lighting review, etc. But at any point, feel free to throw any comments out there about anything. Just be aware that I might say, yeah, that hasn't been lit yet, or yeah, we know that. Because I just had my team meeting, and here's an entire list of notes that we had from today's review.
The camera motion on the very first shot, it just seems a little quick. There's no ramp up to it. It just kind of starts speed and it goes across. I know we need to kind of get there, so maybe we need to just kind of look at that shot against the previous shot and see if it works.
If there's some kind of problem with your work, everybody says there's a communication problem, what gives?
Dude, I don't even know you anymore.
Just kick right away. Okay. Then, but you know, do the for a good. Carlos is the life of this game.
This is, now that I've got alternate Shang Tsung, I'm going in on the details and adding stuff like his back emblem right now. And so whatever detail you see, you know, in terms of folds and wrinkles and stuff, is all in the texture. It'll hide a lot. Let's open up his eyes a little bit, and that'll show you. Basically, you can get a lot out of a few polys if you just weigh your vertices right.
Okay, maybe you don't have to totally lunge out.
Gotcha!
I can't do this with these cameras here.
You can't kill me, I'm immortal!
For Blind Kenchi's reaction...
It's just Kenshi now.
Okay, Kenshi. The loop does not match like where their starting heads are. Like, see his head right there? And then on the loop, look how far his head snaps back. I had to loop like the last bit of frames in order to make it look...
So I guess we're going to have to figure out a way to go about connecting the each of the coffins with the amount of money spent. And
Right, we've got the database, which is going to tell us what's in each coffin, how much the coffins cost. Once the player opens a coffin, it has to be marked in the player profile table.
So how many coffins are there in this crypt?
It's a 26 by 26 array, so there's 676 coffins.
That's a lot of coffins.
It's acting. It's the life, man. This is the life.
So how's that motion work for you?
Things move so fast during one of our typical days that before you know it, the whole day's just flown by. Usually by then we're pretty exhausted, but we know the whole process starts all over again the next day.
See you tomorrow, it's 7 o'clock.
Here is a quick spoiler alert as I'm about to tell the story behind Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. There will also be light spoilers from Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, Mortal Kombat 4, and Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. Now, if you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance this video to the gameplay overview section as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. The story picks up right where Scorpion's ending in Mortal Kombat 4 left off. If you remember, in that ending, Scorpion had just defeated Sub-Zero, believing he had finally avenged his family and clan. But even in his defeat, Sub-Zero insisted he was innocent. That's when Quan Chi revealed the truth. He was the one responsible for the slaughter of Scorpion's family. Enraged, Scorpion dragged Quan Chi down to the Netherrealm with him. For a quick refresher, let's take another look at that moment.
By defeating you, Sub-Zero, I have avenged the death of my family and clan. Now my soul can finally rest.
Your soul will never rest, Scorpion. The Lin Kuei may have been responsible for your murder, but your family's true killer still remains free.
If you are not the murderer, then who is?
I am the one you seek. To defeat my nemesis Sub-Zero, I needed the power of a Spectre. You've done my bidding well, Scorpion, but now I must return you to the Netherrealm.
Never!
Trapped in another realm, Quan Chi searched for a way to escape using Shinnok's amulet. During his search, he stumbled upon an ancient runestone which held a long-lost secret, an undefeatable army belonging to a forgotten ruler of Underworld, known simply as the Dragon King. Realizing he could bring this army back to life, Quan Chi sought out Shang Tsung, offering him an endless supply of souls in exchange for his sorcery to resurrect the warriors. With their plan in motion, the two sorcerers formed an alliance and turned on Shao Kahn, seemingly killing the Emperor. But their ambitions didn't stop there. With Shao Kahn gone, they set their sights on Earthrealm's greatest warrior, Liu Kang. While he was training, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi ambushed him, overpowering him in a brutal attack. In his most vulnerable moment, they struck the final blow, snapping his neck and deleting Mortal Kombat's champion. With Liu Kang's soul now in Shang Tsung's possession, the sorcerers returned to Outworld, using the souls of fallen warriors to begin resurrecting the Dragon King's army. If their plans succeeded, nothing will stand in their way. With Earthrealm now without its champion, Raiden made a fateful decision. He abandoned his status as Elder God to personally lead the fight against the Deadly Alliance. Assembling the remaining warriors willing to stand against them, Raiden prepared for one final battle to stop the sorcerers before it was too late. All of this is laid out in the game's intro cinematic, setting the stage for the events of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance.
Mortal Kombat has always been and always will be. For millennia, the forces of good and evil have been locked in eternal battle over the control of Earthrealm. Some seek to use the tournament to destroy all that is good. Others seek vengeance, power, or eternal life. Time after time, each individual threat has been vanquished, and Earthrealm has enjoyed relative peace for many years. But there is concern that Earth is once again in peril. And this time, the threat of evil has two faces. It is now known that the sorcerer Quan Chi has escaped from the Netherrealm. Since his escape, Quan Chi has unlocked the secret of the ancient runestone. discovered the ancient undefeatable army of the long-forgotten Dragon King. And most disturbing of all, formed an alliance with one of our deadliest enemies, Shang Tsung. With their combined strength, they plotted to overpower the only two beings who could prevent their total domination of the two realms. The first was the Emperor of Outworld, Shao Kahn. In a false show of allegiance, they sprung their attack. They then traveled to Earthrealm by way of a mystical portal known only to sorcerers and deities. There, they confronted Earth's mightiest warrior and champion of Mortal Kombat, Liu Kang. It has been Shang Tsung's desire to consume the soul of Earthrealm's greatest warrior. With Quan Chi's assistance, he achieved this goal. Liu Kang is dead. They have since returned to Outworld and are using the souls of conquered warriors to resurrect the Dragon King's undefeatable army. Should they succeed, they will have the means to conquer Outworld and eventually Earthrealm. They will be unstoppable. I can no longer stand idly by and watch this evil consume the world. I have relinquished my status as Elder God to return to Earth and lead you all to battle against our old adversaries. We must act now. We must stop this deadly alliance.
Now, keep in mind that Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance features multiple endings with each character having their own unique resolution. You can also gain insight into a few characters through the Conquest mode. However, much like previous Mortal Kombat entries, the canonical ending wasn't revealed until the next game. In many ways, Deadly Alliance serves as a setup for a much larger story. With Liu Kang now dead, the game leaves a huge void in the series' narrative, sparking curiosity about who could rise to take his place. The franchise has struggled throughout the late 90s, so this drastic shift in the story was an attempt to reignite interest. Now, I couldn't find multiple sources to confirm this, but I came across an interesting piece of Mortal Kombat history from a YouTuber named Brust Poet regarding John Tobias' original plans for Mortal Kombat 5. I figured it was worth touching on here, so let's look at it. According to Brust Poet, the original concept for Mortal Kombat 5 also involved Liu Kang's death, but instead of Earthrealm being left without a champion, the story would have introduced his son as the new protagonist. The game will follow Liu Kang's son as he reluctantly steps into his father's legacy, learning along the way just how important his father was to Earthrealm. Jax and Sonya would serve as his mentors, guiding him through his journey. The story would have culminated in Liu Kang's son facing off against the reincarnated Shao Kahn, ultimately defeating him and bringing balance back to the realms. Now, of course, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance ultimately went in a different direction, with Liu Kang's death being one of the only major elements that remained from Tobias' original vision. But here's where things get interesting. If you break this story down to its core structure, it bears a striking resemblance to Star Wars A New Hope. And if you watch my Mortal Kombat 2 retrospective, you'll know that Star Wars has always been an influence in Mortal Kombat. Looking at the original Star Wars trilogy, Luke Skywalker, the son of Anakin Skywalker, rises to aid in defeating the Emperor and restoring balance to the Force. In Tobias' vision of MK5, Liu Kang's son would have defeated the reincarnated Emperor, Shao Kahn, and restored balance to the realms. At its core, John Tobias' original idea for Mortal Kombat 5 was essentially the original Star Wars trilogy. Now, I just thought it was an interesting bit of Mortal Kombat history worth uncovering since it piqued my curiosity. But let's shift back to what we actually got with Deadly Alliance. And it's funny because in a way I can compare Deadly Alliance to Star Wars The Phantom Menace. Looking at Deadly Alliance, its primary goal was to set up the story for later entries, the same way The Phantom Menace laid the foundation for the Star Wars prequels. One of the big debates surrounding The Phantom Menace is who the main protagonist actually is. That same question applies to Deadly Alliance, except this game doesn't just lack a clear protagonist, it kills the series' main protagonist the moment you start the game. So, who is the new lead? Is it Raiden, Kung Lao, maybe Johnny Cage? Since we wouldn't get a definitive answer until Mortal Kombat Deception, it's fair to say that Deadly Alliance, much like The Phantom Menace, was purely about setting the tone for what was to come. And when you break it down, it follows the same classic good versus evil trope. Nothing wrong with that, but it's worth noting how it plays into the overall structure of the series. The story in this game leaves us with more questions than answers, and in that sense, Deadly Alliance did exactly what it was meant to do. One of the things that makes Deadly Alliance stand out is this unique villain dynamic. The idea of two sorcerers, Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, breaking free from their former masters and forging their own path has been floating around in Mortal Kombat lore for a while. If we look at the old Mortal Kombat TV show, Mortal Kombat Conquest, there's actually an episode called Unholy Alliance, where Quan Chi and Shang Tsung form an alliance. Now, I'm not saying this entire game was inspired by that one episode, but it does show that the idea of an evil team-up has always been lurking in the background. And I know I've been making a lot of Star Wars comparisons, but tell me this doesn't sound familiar. Both Quan Chi and Shang Tsung served powerful overlords, Shao Kahn and Shinnok, before eventually betraying them to rise and power themselves. It's the same Sith Lord and apprentice dynamic, where the ultimate goal is to overthrow the master. In this case, however, both sorcerers actually succeeded, killing Shao Kahn and boasting their ranks in the process. It's just a good comparison to look at, something I just noticed. But I think we're a little Star Wars out for this analysis, so let's move on and talk about the characters. Like most Mortal Kombat games, the characters are the heart of the story, and Deadly Alliance is no exception. As always, I'll always start with the new characters before diving into the returning roster. The newcomers in this game brought fresh dynamics to the series. Bo' Rai Cho, a martial arts master from Outworld, trained Liu Kang but escaped to Earthrealm to avoid Shao Kahn's rule. Draman, a vengeful Oni from the Netherrealm, seeks retribution against Quan Chi for abandoning him after aiding in the sorcerer's escape. Frost, Sub-Zero's first Lin Kuei apprentice, carries a cocky attitude that often puts her at odds with her master. Su Hao, a Red Dragon operative that infiltrates the Outworld Investigation Agency with the goal of destroying it from within. Kenshi, a blind swordsman who was briefly employed by the Outworld Investigation Agency before being betrayed and left stranded in Outworld. Li Mei, a native of Outworld that fights for the freedom for her enslaved people and entering the tournament sponsored by the Deadly Alliance in hopes of winning their liberation. Mavado, a high-ranking Red Dragon strategist, oversees Su Hao's infiltration mission while serving his own ambitions. Natara, a cunning and manipulative vampire seeking to free her home realm from Outworld's control. As for the secret characters, Deadly Alliance introduced Blaze, a towering fire elemental tasked with guarding a mysterious egg. The game also included a joke character, and honestly, let's just call him the real hero of Deadly Alliance, Mocap. He's literally just a guy in motion capture gear who somehow ended up in the tournament. And I respect that level of dedication, to be honest. The final new character was the sub-boss, Moloch, a monstrous Oni demon serving as one of Quan Chi's enforcers. Returning to the fight, we have several familiar faces. Cyrax, Jax, Johnny Cage, Kano, Kitana, Kung Lao, Quan Chi, Raiden, Reptile, Scorpion, Shang Tsung, Sonya Blade, and Sub-Zero. Much like my other videos, I want to clarify that not all characters' endings are considered canonical. However, they do provide valuable insight into each fighter, adding layers to their individual arcs and motivations. Now, let's talk about Blaze. Believe it or not, he's actually a Mortal Kombat veteran, first appearing in the background of Mortal Kombat 2's pit stage. Originally, he was known as Torch, but due to legal concerns with Marvel's Fantastic Four character, the Human Torch, his name was changed to Blaze. While he started as just a background element, Deadly Alliance finally gives him a full story and solidified his place in the Mortal Kombat lore. According to his bio, Blaze was an elemental being from Outworld who was ambushed on a bridge, likely the same one from Mortal Kombat 2. After being captured, he was enslaved and forced to guard a dragon egg, earning him the moniker Guardian of the Egg. While he was protecting it against his will, the fact that he was given this title suggests something deeper about his nature. Even in his servitude, Blaze was still a protector at heart. While later games would expand on his true purpose, Deadly Alliance provides the first small but significant glimpse into his role. Blaze's ending in the game sees him finally being freed after completing his duty as the Dragon Egg's guardian. With his newfound freedom, he immediately resumes his original quest he had before his capture, reinforcing his sense of duty. However, in a twist, he is once again subdued by his captors, preventing him from fulfilling his mission. This perfectly highlights how Deadly Alliance was built to set up future events. Blaze's story leaves us with more questions than answers, deepening the intrigue around his character. Beyond being a protector, we also see a strong sense of loyalty. His mind immediately returns to his mission the moment he's freed. In this way, Deadly Alliance effectively lays the groundwork for Blaze's greater role in the series.
Having been enslaved through sorcery to guard the molten incubation chamber, Blaze was finally freed once the Dragon Egg had hatched. He then resumed the quest he had undertaken before being subdued by his captors.
Now let's get into the Drunken Master himself, Bo Rai Cho. Ironically, his name is a play on borracho, the Spanish word for drunk. His backstory reveals that he originally wanted to compete in the Mortal Kombat tournament but was unable to because he was from Outworld. Since a victory from him would have counted towards Outworld's tally, he had to take a different approach, training Earthrealm warriors in secret. This was his way of contributing to the fight against Outworld's forces. Beyond that, he also introduced drunken boxing to Earthrealm, a fighting style he was well known for. It's likely that his character was somewhat inspired by Sam Seed from The Drunken Master, which makes sense given his style and personality. One of the most interesting parts of Bo Rai Cho's story is that he was the one who trained Liu Kang before the first Mortal Kombat tournament. After Liu Kang's victory, Bo Rai Cho returned to Outworld, feeling accomplished. However, the rise of the Deadly Alliance, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, forced him to take action. For the first time, he entered the tournament himself, not to fight for Outworld, but to save it from the grip of the two sorcerers. His story helps illustrate that the Deadly Alliance's actions weren't just a threat to Earthrealm, but to multiple realms. His ending in Deadly Alliance shows that after winning the tournament, he returns to the Wuxi Academy, the same place Liu Kang trained, to continue mentoring Earthrealm warriors. He even takes on Kung Lao as his newest apprentice, carrying on his legacy as a teacher. Of course, given his portrayal as a heavy drinker, some comedy is naturally woven into his character. One of his reasons for returning to Earthrealm is because, according to him, the rice wine there is unbeatable. This humorous touch fits perfectly with the Drunken Master archetype. Similar to Sam Seed, ultimately Bo Rai Cho's role in this game highlights how Mortal Kombat has always drawn from pop culture, and his character is a great example of that. While he constantly moves between realms, his arc shows that he's ultimately searching for a greater purpose in life.
Bo Rai Cho looked gruff, but beamed inwardly. With their victory over the Deadly Alliance complete, he and Kung Lao had liberated Outworld from its latest threat. Despite the years that had passed since training his last student, his skills had proven useful once more. He was elated, but it would be inappropriate to express such emotions in front of his newest apprentice. Kung Lao invited his master to return with him to Earthrealm to teach more warriors at the Wuxi Academy. The success of his apprentice gave him renewed confidence in his training skills and, for the first time, a clear purpose in life. Boraicho offered only token resistance. He accepted the offer because the defenders of Earthrealm could certainly use his help, but more importantly, because Earthrealm's rice wine put Outworld's liquor to shame.
Now let's talk about the two Oni, Draman and Moloch. Since their stories are deeply connected, I will be covering both of them together. Before diving into their characters, let's take a moment to explain what an Oni actually is. In Japanese culture, Oni is a type of demonic creature, often depicted as a giant with immense strength and a terrifying appearance. In Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Oni are demons from the Netherrealm, twisted creatures consumed by hatred and driven by an insatiable desire to inflict pain and suffering. While many are already familiar with the concept of Oni, I wanted to clarify for those who may not be entwined with that. Now, back to Draman and Moloch. These two were introduced in Deadly Alliance as bodyguards for Quan Chi after he was dragged into the Netherrealm. Acting as his protectors, they guided him to an ancient structure filled with tablets and runestones dating back to the inception of the realms. It was here that Quan Chi discovered the existence of the Dragon Army, which ultimately led to his escape. However, unbeknownst to him, both Oni had followed him and were also free from the Netherrealm. But instead of loyalty, they felt only betrayal. Furious at being abandoned, they turned their sights on revenge. Moloch, primarily serving as the game's sub-boss, doesn't have a deeply developed arc, but Draman's ending does involve him and gives us a last insight to him. In Draman's ending, both Oni managed to track down and confront Quan Chi thanks from a tip from Shang Tsung. Their pursuit leads to Draman falling into the inner sanctum with Quan Chi, where Draman undergoes a transformation, returning in an entirely new form. This arc highlights something interesting about Oni in the Mortal Kombat universe. Despite being monstrous creatures, they are still capable of emotion, particularly feelings of betrayal and vengeance. Quan Chi viewed them as mere pawns, never considering that they might turn against him. But these pawns were planning to become knights, and their final move was to give Quan Chi an L. Their story is a great example of why you should never underestimate a character, whether a human or an Oni.
Sent by the sorcerer Shang Tsung, the two Oni known as Draman and Moloch confronted Quan Chi, enraged that he had tried to leave them stranded in the bowels of the Netherrealm. In the battle that ensued, Draman leapt at Quan Chi, and both combatants stumbled into the inner sanctum chamber. Moments later, Draman emerged from the chamber, altered from his previous form.
Now, let's move on to the female Sub-Zero, Frost. Now, I just had a thought. Earlier, I mentioned how Blaze had to change his name from Torch due to legal issues with Marvel, but somehow that didn't apply to Frost. Think about it. The Lin Kuei is essentially an assassination clan, and here we have a killer named Frost. Sounds familiar, right? Killer Frost, a DC villain. This was before the Warner Brothers deal, but it's interesting to note how Marvel took an issue with Torch, yet DC remained silent about Frost. Just something that crossed my mind while making this video. Anyway, let's get into a character. After the Cyber Initiative took over the Lin Kuei, Sub-Zero reclaimed control and became the Grand Master, aiming to reform the clan. To recruit new warriors, he held a tournament, and the one who rose above the rest was Frost, a skilled yet arrogant fighter with freezing abilities similar to Sub-Zero. Impressed by her talent, Sub-Zero took her under his wing and she joined him in his battle against the Deadly Alliance. However, her true intentions will be revealed in her ending, where she betrays Sub-Zero, attempting to steal her way to the rank of Grand Master. She blasts him away and seizes the Dragon Medallion, but her ambition proves to be her downfall. The power of the medallion overwhelms her, and she is consumed by her own freezing abilities. Frost's character is a representation of karma and how arrogance can be one's undoing. After winning the tournament, she felt entitled to leadership, seeing herself as the strongest Lin Kuei warrior. But strength alone wasn't enough. She lacked the wisdom and humility necessary for such a role. Her impatience led to her downfall. No one forced his fate upon her. She put it upon herself. Her arc is a reminder that while skill is important, humility is just as vital.
As they traveled back to the portal that would return them to Earthrealm, Sub-Zero revealed to Frost that she had been an integral part in the destruction of the Deadly Alliance, and that he was proud to have her as a member of the Lin Kuei clan. But unknown to Sub-Zero, Frost's true intention for joining the Lin Kuei was to become Grandmaster herself. She used her Ice Blast to temporarily immobilize him and rip the dragon medallion from his chest. As she held the medallion, she felt power surge through her body. Lacking the strength and discipline required to control the medallion's immense power, she was consumed by her own freezing ability.
Now let's take a look at the Red Dragon's own Malvado. Originally his name was going to be Malvado, which is the Spanish word for evil, but the developers decided to change it, feeling it didn't quite fit his character. Now let's talk about who he is. Malvado is a high-ranking member of the Red Dragon, a secretive crime syndicate and longtime rival of the Black Dragon clan, a gang that included members like Kano, Cabal, and Jarek. If you recall from our Mortal Kombat 4 video, the Black Dragon was believed to have been wiped out, and the Red Dragon operated under that assumption until the Deadly Alliance approached Malvado and informed him that Kano was still alive. They struck a deal. In exchange for eliminating an outworld spy named Kenshi, the Deadly Alliance would deliver Kano into Malvado's hands. His story unfolds with him successfully taking out Kenshi and finally eliminating Kano, proving his worth to the Deadly Alliance. Impressed by his efficiency, they sought his services once again for their planned invasion of Earthrealm. To further secure their partnership, Quan Chi sweetened the deal by revealing another potential threat to the Red Dragon, the Lin Kuei. Malvado, as a character, is the definition of a businessman. He operates with cold precision, offering his services to gain valuable information and strengthen his faction. His greatest strength is his loyalty to his organization, but at the same time, his ruthless and recklessness make him a truly dangerous figure in the Mortal Kombat lore.
For many years, Malvado's Red Dragon clan had been secretly engineering the destruction of their rivals, the Black Dragon. Through careful manipulation, Malvado had used the Special Forces to unwittingly aid them in this task. In return for eliminating Kenshi for the Deadly Alliance, Malvado was finally granted his battle with the last known member of the Black Dragon, Kano. After a long, brutal fight, Malvado emerged victorious, and all traces of the Black Dragon had been erased. Impressed with the fighting skill and discipline of Malvado, as well as other members of his clan, Quan Chi realized the potential the Red Dragon held for staging the eventual invasion of Earthrealm. In return for their continued assistance, he offered crucial information about a new threat to Malvado's Red Dragon clan, the Lin Kuei.
Now let's talk about the other Red Dragon member, Su Hao. Originally his name was set out to be Kublai Khan, after the Mongolian emperor. He was conceived as an anti-Jax, possessing a cybernetic heart due to Chinese military experiments. Now, let's dive into his character. Su Hao was tasked with infiltrating special forces under the guise of helping them take down the Black Dragon. So, if you recall from Mortal Kombat 4 when Sonya confronted Jarek on the cliff and declared that the Black Dragon had been wiped out, that was actually due to Su Hao acting as a double agent. However, his true loyalty was to the Red Dragon, and Malvado essentially assigned him a new mission to destroy the Outworld Investigation Agency. Executing his orders, Su Hao used an ion pulse bomb to wipe out the agency. Jax, having caught wind of his betrayal, attempted to stop him, but Su Hao managed to escape through a portal, fleeing to Outworld in search of Movado. His story continues in his ending, where he finally reunites with Movado and is given his next mission. With Quan Chi suspecting that Shang Tsung might betray him and break their alliance, he seeks reinforcement. He requests aid from Movado, who in turn assigns Su Hao to eliminate Quan Chi's enemies. Since Shang Tsung had Moloch and Drummond on his side, Quan Chi needed his own insurance. Enter the Red Dragon. Su Hao was tasked with taking out Shang Tsung himself. His character arc is one of deceit and blind loyalty. He reveals himself as a double agent, but in the end, he's nothing more than a pawn. He's a slave to his own clan, lacking any true purpose beyond fulfilling their bidding. It's actually quite tragic. While other characters in Mortal Kombat fight for power, revenge, or redemption, Su Hao exists solely to serve and making him one of the most soulless characters in the roster.
Su Hao reported to his superior, Movado, and informed him of his success in destroying the Special Forces Outer World Investigation Agency. Movado then informed Su Hao of his next objective. It seemed that Quan Chi was proving to be a powerful ally and was willing to aid the Red Dragon in its quest for domination of Earth. In a show of good faith, Movado agreed to destroy Quan Chi's enemies. The sorcerer suspected betrayal from Shang Tsung. There was evidence that Shang Tsung had allied with the two Oni, known as Moloch and Drummond. Su Hao's new orders were to eliminate the sorcerer Shang Tsung before the Oni eliminated Quan Chi.
Now let's get into the blind swordsman, Kenshi. Long ago, he traveled to Japan in search of the greatest warriors to challenge. During his journey, he learned about his lineage. He was a descendant of a forgotten line of warrior kings. However, this newfound knowledge came at a cost. Shang Tsung deceived Kenshi, tricking him into opening an ancient tomb, claiming it held his ancestors' souls. But upon doing so, Shang Tsung absorbed their spirits for himself, leaving Kenshi blinded and defeated. From that moment, Kenshi dedicated himself to a singular goal, freeing his ancestors' souls from Shang Tsung. He eventually joined the Special Forces, aiding in the rescue of Cyrax and securing access to Outworld. When he discovered Shang Tsung's whereabouts, he began spying on him, preparing for his moment of vengeance. However, as we learn from Su Hao's story, the Special Forces agency was destroyed, cutting off Kenshi's way home. Despite this, his vendetta against Shang Tsung remained dominant. The climax of his character arc in Deadly Alliance sees Kenshi finally confronting Shang Tsung, armed with the sword of his ancestors. He strikes down the sorcerer, severing his hold over the spirits. As a result, Kenshi's ancestors are freed, their souls entering his sword, ensuring their legacy lived on. As a new addition to the roster, Kenshi stands out as one of the most noble characters in the game. Deceived and left for dead, he turned his tragedy into a mission of honor. He embodies the idea of pride in one's lineage, fighting not just for himself but for those who came before him. Deadly Alliance gave him a strong introduction, a compelling backstory, a unique playstyle, and a satisfying character arc that made him one of the best additions to the Mortal Kombat lore.
Outworld. Years ago, Kenshi had been manipulated into releasing the souls of his warrior ancestors. Shang Tsung had consumed those souls and left Kenshi to die in the tomb. The ordeal left Kenshi blinded, but the sword of his ancestors led him out of the depths. To redeem himself, Kenshi had vowed to free his ancestors from their captor. He cut Shang Tsung down with his ancestral sword, and a blast of souls was instantly released. The spirits of the warrior kings re-entered the sword as Kenshi held it above his head. His duty fulfilled, he could now return to Earthrealm.
Now let's dive into Li Mei. When Shang Tsung's fortress was being constructed, it was built on a land her people believed to be sacred. Meanwhile, due to Quan Chi's escape from the Netherrealm, countless entities were unleashed, further disrupting the balance of the realm. In the midst of all this chaos, Kano and his forces sought to drive Li Mei's people from their homes to make way for the fortress. Recognizing her warrior spirit, Quan Chi took an interest in Li Mei and offered her a cruel bargain. If she won the tournament, her people would be freed, but if she failed, she would be forced to serve the Deadly Alliance, and her people would remain enslaved forever. Unfortunately, as we see in her ending, even victory didn't guarantee freedom. After proving herself in combat, she was ultimately deceived by the two sorcerers. Instead of being guaranteed her people's freedom, she became the final soul needed to complete the dragon army. Her body transformed into a mummified soldier, forever trapped in servitude. On the surface, Li Mei's story mirrors the tragic fates of characters like Reptile and Baraka, fighters who, despite their strength, are manipulated by greater powers and ultimately doesn't end well for them. Like them, she was driven by a deep love for her people, but that very compassion led to her downfall. Her arc serves as yet another example of deception, a theme integrated in Deadly Alliance. It's a stark reminder that in the world of Mortal Kombat, noble intentions mean little when facing the likes of Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, who always ensure that they have their cake and eat it too. Having Li Mei fight in the tournament was a brilliant move on their part, keeping her distracted while sealing her fate. In the end, her character arc stands as one of the most tragic in the game, making her one of Deadly Alliance's most heartbreaking additions.
Li Mei had been promised that her people would be freed from enslavement if she could win the tournament held by the Deadly Alliance. Now that she had emerged victorious, the true purpose behind the tournament was finally revealed to her. Her soul would be the last one Shang Tsung needed to completely revive the Dragon King's lost army. Her people would never be freed, and Li Mei herself would remain trapped inside the mummified remains of a dead soldier, cursed to serve the Deadly Alliance forever.
Now, let's take a look at Nitara. She's a vampire with a singular goal: to sever the connection between her realm and Outworld. For years, her home had been bound to Outworld by a mysterious orb, and she was determined to destroy it. However, the orb was located in a place she couldn't reach on her own. That's where Cyrax came in. Recognizing that he was the key to retrieving the orb, Nitara manipulated Reptile into attacking him. As a result, Cyrax was left stranded in Outworld, giving her the perfect opportunity to strike a deal. She offered him a choice: retrieve the orb for her, and in return she would send him back to Earthrealm. Cyrax accepted, and in her ending, he successfully recovered the orb. True to her word, Nitara honored their agreement and sent him home. Now, with the orb in her hands, she destroyed it, blacking out from a surge of energy. When she awoke, she found herself back in her own realm, her mission finally complete. What makes Nitara such an interesting character is that she doesn't fit neatly into the hero or villain category. She didn't act out of malice, but out of a desire to free her world from Outworld's grasp. She used manipulation as a means to an end, making her more of an anti-hero or perhaps even an anti-villain. Her actions were calculated, her motives were personal, and her methods unpredictable, making her one of the most intriguing additions to Mortal Kombat's lore.
After what seemed like an eternity, Cyrax finally emerged from the lava, holding the orb that had bound Nitara's realm to Outworld for ages. At last, it was within her grasp. She would be able to free her people from Shao Kahn's imprisonment. Fulfilling her end of the bargain, she sent Cyrax back to his Earthrealm home in exchange for the orb. Nitara stared into the orb. It seethed with the power trapped within. She raised it above her head and then smashed it to the floor. It shattered with an inhuman, soul-rending howl. Its horrible energy exploded away and tore her consciousness from her. She awoke later for the first time on her native soil.
The last new character to cover is the most entertaining: Mocap. He's a lighthearted addition to the roster, and his origins are just as amusing. Mocap is actually based on Midway's graphic artist Carlos Pesina, who, if you remember, was one of the original actors for Mortal Kombat 1992, portraying Raiden in the live-action Sprite animations. In Deadly Alliance, Mocap is a retired martial arts instructor from the north side of Chicago. His story begins when Johnny Cage, in the process of making a new film titled Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, hires him to do the motion capture work for the movie. And of course, we all know his ending is really canonical, let's be real. He completes the film with Johnny Cage and gets referred to Midway to work on the video game adaptation of the movie. All jokes aside, Mocap was essentially a fun tribute to a veteran of the Mortal Kombat series, while also poking fun at the behind-the-scenes production of the game. He was never meant to be a serious fighter, just a quirky, self-aware addition to the roster, a classic example of Mortal Kombat's sense of humor. Now that we uncovered the new characters, let's dive into the veterans of Mortal Kombat that returned. Starting with Cyrax. Deadly Alliance confirms that his ending in Mortal Kombat Gold was, in fact, canon. Sonya and Jax were able to restore his soul, and he ultimately decided to join the Special Forces. In this game, we learned that Cyrax was assigned as a scout in Outworld, but was ambushed by Reptile, resulting in damage to his arm console, the very device that allowed him to travel between realms. Of course, if you recall Natara's bio, we know she was actually the one who sent Reptile after him. But here, we get to see Cyrax's side of the story. After the attack, Natara approached him with a deal, retrieved the orb for her, and in return she would help him return to Earthrealm. The catch? The orb was submerged in lava, and Cyrax's cybernetic body made him uniquely capable of retrieving it. While he was hesitant to trust her, he ultimately agreed to the task. In his ending, he successfully retrieves the orb, hands it over to Natara, and surprisingly she keeps her word, sending him back to Earthrealm. His role in this game is mostly tied to Natara's story, just from his perspective. However, when looking at Cyrax's journey throughout the series, his transformation is remarkable, going from a loyal Lin Kuei warrior to a mindless cybernetic assassin, and finally to a Special Forces operative. It's unfortunate that despite escaping the Cyber Initiative's control, he still finds himself being used by others, this time by Natara. But at least, unlike many characters who fall victim to betrayal and lose everything, Cyrax walks away from this game with his life and a way back home.
The enormous heat and pressure of the lava burned out Cyrax's sensors almost immediately. He cast about blindly in the infernal pit, searching for the orb Natara had sent him to locate. Cyrax found it resting upon a small submerged pedestal beneath the molten depths. As soon as he clambered to the surface, she demanded he hand over the orb. Natara had promised to return Cyrax to Earthrealm once the orb had been retrieved. Taking her necklace in hand, she uttered a mystical incantation. A swirling portal opened around Cyrax had he only had time for a solemn bow before he was swept into the gateway.
Now let's take a look at Major Jackson Briggs. As one of the most dominant members of Special Forces, Jax has always been portrayed as a strong leader with loyalty to his comrades. This defining trait has been reinforced throughout the series, whether in past endings or even comic book tie-ins. As we previously covered, both Cyrax and Kenshi were sent to Outworld and were reporting back to base. However, thanks to Suhao's actions, the Special Forces headquarters was completely destroyed, along with their means of interdimensional travel. With no way to get to Outworld himself, Jax had to rely on none other than Raiden, who stepped in to help him make the journey. In his ending, Jax successfully tracks down Su Hao and delivers brutal justice by ripping out his cybernetic heart, ensuring a slow and painful demise. It's worth noting that Su Hao was originally conceived as an anti-Jax, a character designed to be his counterpart with his cybernetic heart created through Chinese military experiments. So, from a narrative standpoint, it was inevitable that the two would eventually cross paths. Jax's characterization in Deadly Alliance remains consistent with his established role in the series. While revenge against Su Hao was certainly on his mind, his initial motivation, according to his bio, was to rescue his stranded teammates, Cyrax and Kenshi. This game once again reinforces what makes Jax such a great character: his loyalty, leadership, and commitment to his allies.
Jax had a score to settle with the traitor he knew as Su Hao. Now revealed to be a member of the Red Dragon, Su Hao had infiltrated the Special Forces Outer World Investigation Agency and destroyed it with a miniature nuclear weapon. Making good on his promise, Jax eventually caught up with Su Hao and ripped the implant from his chest in retribution. Su Hao died a most painful death.
Now let's go full Hollywood with Johnny Cage. In this entry, we learn that he's growing bored with his latest movie, Mortal Kombat: The Death of Johnny Cage, where his character repeatedly dies and gets resurrected. He continues working on the film until Raiden contacts him, urging him to travel to Outworld and help stop the Deadly Alliance. Without hesitation, Cage drops everything and agrees to join the fight. He makes his way to Shang Tsung's fortress with a dramatic entrance and teams up with the other Earthrealm warriors to hear Raiden's warning. His ending sees him returning to Earthrealm with victory in one hand and a fresh movie script in the other. True to form, he decides to make a film about his supposed real-life exploits, chronicling how he single-handedly defeated Quan Chi and Shang Tsung in Outworld. The movie, titled Mortal Kombat: Deadly Alliance, goes on to be a massive hit, and while his ending doesn't explicitly mention it, we all know a video game tie-in was inevitable, complete with mocap handling the stunts. Even though his ending leans into comedy, it doesn't take away from who Johnny Cage is at his core. Throughout the series, he always wanted to prove himself as a fighter, and Deadly Alliance gives him yet another chance to do just that. While he remains as arrogant as ever, one thing is clear: when duty calls, Johnny Cage will show up to show out. And once the dust settles, he'll find a way to profit from the experience. That's what makes him one of the funniest and most consistently entertaining characters in the franchise.
Upset by the way his adventures had been portrayed in the past, Johnny Cage found a loophole in his contract and left MCM Studios during the production of Mortal Kombat: The Death of Johnny Cage. He then used his own money to fund the production of his next movie, which is rumored to be the true story of his latest adventures in Outworld. Mortal Kombat: Deadly Alliance broke all records in its first weekend in theaters and made Johnny Cage extremely wealthy. The movie told the true story of how Johnny Cage single-handedly saved the world from the threat of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung's Deadly Alliance.
Now let's take a look at the last Black Dragon man standing, Kano. As a character, Kano hadn't been seen since Mortal Kombat 3, and many believed him to be dead after the events of Mortal Kombat 4. However, Deadly Alliance reveals that he was very much alive. After being defeated by Sonya, he was imprisoned by Shao Kahn, only to later earn his freedom by saving Shao Kahn from Shiva's attempted assassination. From there, he remained in Outworld until Shang Tsung and Quan Chi ambushed and eliminated Shao Kahn. Ever the opportunist, Kano wasted no time in pledging his allegiance to the Deadly Alliance, believing it to be in his best interests. His ending sees the downfall of the Deadly Alliance, but not in the way you'd expect. Shang Tsung betrays Quan Chi, and ever the schemer, Kano takes advantage of the situation by stealing the amulet and seizing control of the dragon army. His first act as the new leader, ordering the now controlled army to eliminate Special Agent Sonya Blade once and for all. Throughout the Mortal Kombat series, we've seen plenty of rivalries. Sub-Zero versus Scorpion, Liu Kang versus Shao Kahn, but Sonya versus Kano has been one of the most persistent. In his ending, Kano finally comes out on top, bringing their long-standing feud to a close on his terms. It's a rare moment where patience pays off, even for a villain like him. Whether he's causing chaos or playing the waiting game, Kano proves once again that he's always looking for the next power grab.
Kano and Sonya had fought before. Although Kano was humiliated by his defeat at her hands so many years ago, this time the outcome would be different. Kano had stolen Quan Chi's amulet at the request of Shang Tsung. With the amulet in his possession, Kano came to the realization that he was now in total control of the revived undefeatable army. Rather than hand the amulet and the army over to Shang Tsung, Kano kept them for himself and used the army to ambush Sonya, ending their long rivalry once and for all.
Now let's turn our attention to Princess Kitana of Edenia. Her story picks up after the events of Mortal Kombat 4, where Edenia was finally freed from Shao Kahn's rule and Queen Sindel had reclaimed her throne. With newfound strength, Kitana and the Shokan warriors led an assault against Khan, an effort that unfortunately resulted in Goro's death yet again. Shao Kahn's forces retreated soon after, especially once the deadly alliance of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung eliminated the Emperor. With their homeland seemingly in a stable position, Kitana shifted her focus towards peace. However, this newfound stability was short-lived as the Dragon Army soon clashed with the Edenian warriors. Despite these new threats, her ending finds her in a somewhat reflective state rather than one of despair. With Shao Kahn and the deadly alliance defeated, she attends the funeral of her fallen ally, Goro. Yet, her mind isn't just on him. It drifts to Liu Kang, who also lost his life at the hands of the sorcerers. Kitana's character in Deadly Alliance is deeply rooted in grief. She has not only lost an ally, but she also lost a lover. In her ending, she even wonders what could have been if Liu Kang had chosen to stay in Edenia with her after Mortal Kombat 4. Would things have been different? Her mourning is twofold, making her one of the most emotionally relatable characters in this entry. Unlike many warriors who are driven by vengeance or conquest, Kitana seeks only peace, something that was even emphasized in the Mortal Kombat 4 comic. She has seen firsthand the cost of war, and it only reinforced what she has always wanted, an end to the cycle of violence.
Kitana's longtime enemy Shao Kahn was dead, and the alliance between Shang Tsung and Quan Chi was defeated with the help of warriors from Earthrealm. Although there was peace once more throughout the realms, all was not right for Kitana. Saddened by the death of Goro, she attended a ceremony in the Kuotan Palace to honor her fallen friend and ally. Following Shokan tradition, Prince Goro's body was lowered into the molten rock contained within the throne room itself. As Kitana said goodbye to her wartime ally, she also held a moment of silence for Liu Kang, and secretly wished he had joined her in Edenia so many years ago.
Now let's go Shaolin monks with Kung Lao. In Deadly Alliance, he was the first to discover Liu Kang's lifeless body, and when he learned who was responsible, something inside him snapped. Unlike his usual disciplined demeanor, Kung Lao became consumed by the need for revenge. However, he was self-aware enough to recognize that his skills weren't strong enough to take on the Deadly Alliance alone. Seeking the same training that had once helped Liu Kang defeat Shang Tsung, he traveled to Outworld and became a student of Bo Rai Cho. Under his guidance, Kung Lao mastered the Whirlwind Kick, a technique that would prove essential in his quest for vengeance. Once his training was complete, the two warriors set out to bring justice for Liu Kang. Kung Lao's ending sees him finally defeating Shang Tsung, but rather than celebrating, he mourns Liu Kang's loss, realizing that victory doesn't erase pain of losing a brother and a friend. What's interesting is how his journey mirrors Liu Kang's in Mortal Kombat 2's. Back then, Liu sought out revenge after the Wuxi Academy was destroyed, and now Kung Lao finds himself on the same path after losing Liu. Kung Lao's character arc in the series is one of growth and responsibility. He started as someone who distanced himself from the burden of his lineage, but over time he grew to embrace his duty. Now, with Liu Kang gone, that weight is heavier than ever. What makes this moment even more impactful is how it contrasts with his development in Mortal Kombat Gold. There he learned the value of forgiveness, even making peace with Goro. But here, there's no room for reconciliation. His ancestor, the great Kung Lao, was slain in battle, and now Liu Kang was brutally deleted in cold blood. In Deadly Alliance, Kung Lao is at his most vulnerable, yet it's also the moment that defines how strong he truly is.
Rage fueled Kung Lao's thirst for revenge. The memory of holding his fellow monk's broken body on the Lei Tai of the Wuxi Academy grounds consumed him as he rained blow after blow down upon Shang Tsung. Kung Lao had finally mastered the attack Bo' Rai Cho had taught him. The sorcerer could not withstand his whirlwind assault. Shang Tsung begged for mercy. Kung Lao granted him none. Upon his return to Earthrealm, Kung Lao stood before the modest shrine to Liu Kang, which had been erected by the Wuxi initiates during his absence in Outworld. He lit a stick of incense and placed it among the others already burning there. He bowed his head and prayed for safe passage to the afterlife for his friend and brother. With Shang Tsung's death, Liu Kang's spirit could rest peacefully. Earthrealm was safe once more, but at a terrible cost. The work of the White Lotus Society had become more important than ever.
Now let's move on to one half of the Deadly Alliance, Quan Chi. As I mentioned in the narrative section of the video, Scorpion's Mortal Kombat 4 ending was canon, meaning Quan Chi was dragged down to the Netherrealm as punishment. While trapped, he found unlikely allies in two Oni, Moloch and Draman, who helped him discover an ancient runestone. The key to everything? Shinnok's amulet. Using its power, Quan Chi unlocked a portal leading him to an ancient tomb in Outworld, one that held the mummified army of the Dragon King. This discovery set the stage for a game-changing partnership with Shang Tsung. Forming the Deadly Alliance, their deal was simple. Shang Tsung would use his necromantic abilities to revive the army, while Quan Chi's amulet would prove an endless supply of souls to fuel the process. To ensure their victory, they took down two of the biggest threats standing in their way, Shao Kahn and Liu Kang. In Quan Chi's ending, the plan unfolds just as expected. He successfully revives the Dragon King's army, cementing his dominance. With victory within reach, he orders Kano to eliminate Shang Tsung, ensuring no loose ends. But just as he prepares to tie up one last thread, his past sins come back to haunt him. In a shocking twist, Liu Kang's soul erupts from the void, possessing Kano's body and turning the tide against Quan Chi. Honestly, this ending is pure poetic justice. Throughout the series, Quan Chi has been the master manipulator, constantly betraying allies and outmaneuvering his enemies. But here, karma finally catches up to him. The very power he sought to control becomes his undoing, proving that no matter how cunning he is, the past always has a way of striking back.
The Deadly Alliance was successful in reviving the mummified remains of the Dragon King's undefeatable army. It would appear that nothing could stand in the way of Shang Tsung and Quan Chi as they began their domination of the realms. Unfortunately for Shang Tsung, however, Quan Chi had no further need for the partnership. Once Shang Tsung had finally revived the last of the mummified warriors, Quan Chi closed the portal to the heavens and effectively shut off Shang Tsung's endless supply of souls. Quan Chi then instructed Kano to assassinate Shang Tsung in a surprise weapon attack. With their captor cut wide open, the thousands of souls Shang Tsung had consumed in the past spewed forth and swirled around the room. Quan Chi came to the realization that if Kano could so easily turn on Shang Tsung, he could also turn on Quan Chi himself. Quan Chi used his sorcery to drain the life from Kano and left his body where it fell. Immediately, one of the lingering souls shot into Kano's body. To Quan Chi's surprise, the man standing before him was no longer the black dragon thug known as Kano. Kano's body now contained the soul of the Shaolin monk, Liu Kang.
Now, let's move on to Raiden. If you recall from Mortal Kombat 4, Raiden was promoted to the rank of Elder God, leaving Fujin to take his place as Earthrealm's protector. But as we learn in Deadly Alliance, something we always suspected turns out to be true. The Elder Gods are useless. According to Raiden's bio, the Elder Gods knew about Quan Chi and Shang Tsung's actions, yet chose not to intervene. Frustrated by their indifference, Raiden took a stand. He pleaded with his fellow Elder Gods to take action, but when they refused, he made a bold decision. He relinquished his Elder God status and returned to Earthrealm, determined to defend it himself. Back among mortals, Raiden wasted no time in rallying his allies against the impending storm. Using his divine abilities, he summoned Shang Tsung's nether ship from the ocean depths, transporting the warriors to a celestial portal known only to sorcerers and deities. In his ending, Raiden and his allies successfully defeat the Deadly Alliance, but victory brings new concerns. He realizes that other threats will continue to emerge, and that as long as there are forces willing to destroy Earthrealm, his work will never be done. Accepting his truth, Raiden chooses to remain the God of Thunder, fully committing to his duty as Earthrealm's protector. Raiden's character arc in Deadly Alliance is one of the most compelling in the series. His sacrifice pays off, but he also learns a harsh reality. Being an Elder God means standing by and doing nothing, even in the face of a catastrophe. It's especially ironic considering Quan Chi once helped Shinnok overthrow the Elder Gods, yet they still refuse to act against him. You'd think they seized the opportunity to take someone down who nearly destroyed them, but no, there are no consequences. And that's why Raiden is one of the most respected characters in the franchise. Unlike the Elder Gods, he doesn't just care about maintaining balance, he genuinely cares about the people of Earthrealm. He values life, fights for those who can't fight for themselves, and is willing to give up everything to protect them.
Once again, the threat to Earthrealm has been vanquished. The Deadly Alliance is no more. What dangers lie in the future I can no longer foresee. Perhaps the Dragon King will in fact return. Perhaps the depths of the Netherrealm will spew forth a legion of Oni. Even the vampire people pose a threat to peace now that Outworld is in chaos. But one thing is certain. Earthrealm must be protected. I have abandoned my status as Elder God to aid these mortals and act defiant of the heavens. I will instead remain here on Earth as God of Thunder.
In Deadly Alliance, Reptile once again finds himself caught in a web of manipulation and misplaced loyalty. After uncovering Shang Tsung and Quan Chi's plot to delete Shao Kahn, Reptile rushed to warn his master. However, before he could deliver the warning, he was intercepted by Natara, a vampire warrior with her own agenda. She lured him to the hidden base camp of Katana's forces, knowing that revealing its location would be a valuable asset in the war against Edenia and the Shogun. Believing this information would help Shao Kahn, Reptile made his way back, only to arrive too late. By the time he returned to the fortress, Shao Kahn was already eliminated. slain by the Deadly Alliance. Devastated by his failure, Reptile wandered the Outworld wastelands, lost and without purpose, until he once again crossed paths with Natara. Desperate for a new master, he swore loyalty to her, and she immediately put him to work. His first mission: attack Cyrax, an Earthrealm warrior who had stumbled into Outworld. Natara instructed him to target Cyrax's arm panel, weakening him for whatever plan she had in store. Reptile's ending, however, takes a much darker turn. While tracking Natara and Cyrax, he stumbles upon a mysterious chamber filled with a sulfurous stench and remnants of powerful magic. Though his prey is nowhere to be seen, something far more significant is about to unfold. In the center of the room, an ancient dragon embryo begins to stir. The egg cracks open, releasing a beam of energy that strikes Reptile. His body contorts, his scales warp, and in an instant, he is transformed. The ancient prophecy is fulfilled. The Dragon King has returned. Once again, Reptile is little more than a pawn, manipulated by those who see him as a tool rather than an individual. Throughout the series, he is being used by nearly every major villain, constantly searching for belonging, but never truly finding it. And in Deadly Alliance, that cycle continues, culminating in his most tragic fate yet, losing himself completely in the resurrection of the Dragon King.
Despite the strong sulfurous stench that filled the chamber, Reptile could smell that Natara and Cyrax had been there recently. There was no sign of them now, except for some scattered glass shards and a residual trace of strong magical energies. His revenge would have to wait. Suddenly, an expectant hush filled the chamber as energy cascaded around what appeared to be a dragon embryo. The tiny dragon stretched and the egg cracked. A beam of energy ripped out from inside and lanced into Reptile. His world was filled with a roaring power as his squamous body was twisted and transformed. The ancient prophecy had been fulfilled. The Dragon King had returned.
Scorpion's journey in Deadly Alliance is one of vengeance, frustration, and ultimately cruel fate. Picking up where Mortal Kombat 4 left off, Scorpion finally learned the truth. His clan, wife, and child were slaughtered, not by Sub-Zero, but by Quan Chi himself. Enraged, Scorpion refused to let the sorcerer escape. As Quan Chi attempted to teleport away, the vengeful Spectre grabbed hold of him, dragging them both into the Netherrealm. From that moment on, Scorpion hunted Quan Chi relentlessly, attacking him at every turn. However, Quan Chi was not without his own resources. Desperate to escape, he enlisted the help of two powerful Oni, Moloch and Draman, to act as his personal bodyguards. Eventually, Quan Chi discovered a portal leading out of the Netherrealm, and while Scorpion rushed to follow, he emerged in Outworld, far from his target. Though the chase continued, Scorpion was once again at a disadvantage, forced to track Quan Chi across yet another treacherous realm. His ending in the game, however, is anything but triumphant. Scorpion's hunt leads him to Shang Tsung's palace, where he sneaks in through a hidden passage. Before he can reach Quan Chi, he is ambushed by Moloch and Draman, who had since allied themselves with Shang Tsung as an additional defense measure. Scorpion fights valiantly, but is ultimately overpowered. While the Oni are unable to consume him like their other victims, they come up with a far more sadistic way to dispose of him. They cast him into the Soulnado, a swirling vortex of purified souls. As his hellspawn body is pulled into its energy, he is ripped apart by its holy power. For a character so deeply defined by revenge, this ending feels particularly cruel. After finally learning the truth behind his family's murder, Scorpion spends the entire game chasing down Quan Chi, only to be denied the justice he deserved. If any character in the franchise deserves closure, it's him. But instead of vengeance, Scorpion meets a fate worse than death, left screaming as he's torn apart by the very forces he can never be a part of. It's a stark reminder that in Mortal Kombat, revenge is never a guaranteed victory.
The hunt for Quan Chi had led Scorpion to the palace of Shang Tsung. Scorpion entered the palace through a hidden passage. As he made his way through the lower levels, he was discovered by the two Oni he had previously encountered while in the Netherrealm. Shang Tsung had secretly allied with Moloch and Draman as a backup defense against Quan Chi. The two Oni had been hidden in an underground chamber and were periodically fed mortals to keep them satisfied. Scorpion fought well, but was overpowered by Moloch and Draman. Although they could not consume the Ninja Spectre, they devised another means for eliminating their foe that would satisfy their cruel nature. The Oni brought Scorpion before the portal to the heavens that Shang Tsung had tapped as a source of limitless souls. They hurled him into the Solnado, and his hellspawn body was ripped apart by the purity of that realm.
Now let's look at the other half of the Deadly Alliance, with Shang Tsung. When we catch up with him in this game, he has been imprisoned in the depths of Shao Kahn's fortress, a punishment for failing to win the Mortal Kombat tournament in Earthrealm. Though periodically released to carry out tasks for the Emperor, he spent much of his time at Outworld risking his life by draining souls just to sustain his youth. That all changed the day Quan Chi emerged from the Netherrealm. Seeing an opportunity, Quan Chi proposed an alliance, one that promised mutual benefit. In exchange for Shang Tsung's mastery of soul transplantation, Quan Chi would grant him immortality by unlocking a portal linked to the heavens, granting Shang Tsung access to an unlimited supply of souls. In return, all Shang Tsung had to do was assist in reviving the mummified army of the Dragon King. Naturally, Shang Tsung accepted. However, his ending reveals the inevitable outcome of two power-hungry sorcerers working together. Betrayal. After successfully reviving the mummified army, Shang Tsung realizes that his usefulness in the partnership is diminishing. With his role fulfilled, he knew that it was only a matter of time before Quan Chi no longer needed him. Anticipating betrayal, Shang Tsung acted first. He secretly instructed Kano to steal Quan Chi's amulet, knowing that the spell binding the army would force them to obey whoever possessed it. Once the amulet was in his hands, Shang Tsung revealed his betrayal, ordering the army to eliminate Quan Chi. His plan was clear. He would be the one to conquer the realms to succeed where others had failed. Earthrealm would be his. This ending is perfectly fitting for Shang Tsung's character. It proves that the Deadly Alliance was never a true partnership. It was always a means to an end. Shang Tsung only looks out for himself, and the moment he no longer needed Quan Chi, he disposed of him. And yet, looking at both of them, it's obvious that one was always going to betray the other. It was just a matter of who struck first. For a character defined by deception and self-preservation, this outcome is as Shang Tsung as it gets.
The Deadly Alliance was successful in reviving the mummified remains of the Dragon King's undefeatable army. Shang Tsung, however, began to realize that his relevance in the partnership had evaporated once his talents for soul transplantation were no longer needed. The balance of power within the Deadly Alliance had seemingly been undone. Fearing betrayal, he secretly instructed Kano to steal Quan Chi's amulet in an attempt to gain control of the army. Since part of the soul transfer spell included the command to obey he who possesses the amulet, the army would obey only Shang Tsung and not Quan Chi once the amulet was in his possession. Amulet in hand, Shang Tsung revealed his betrayal to Quan Chi and commanded the army to destroy the sorcerer. Shang Tsung would succeed where others had failed. He would conquer the realms. He would conquer Earth.
Sonya Blade's role in Deadly Alliance continues to highlight her dedication to duty, loyalty to her team, and relentless pursuit of justice. At the beginning of the game, she and her team just completed their mission of destroying ancient inner realm portals to prevent further incursions between realms. However, things took a dire turn when Jax informed her that the agency's own portal chamber had been destroyed. With no immediate way to transverse realms, Sonya realized that 2 of her fellow agents were now stranded in Outworld: the cybernetic ninja, Cyrax, who had gone missing some time ago, and Agent Kenshi, who had been sent to locate him but was now lost as well. Determined to bring them home, Sonya was assigned to accompany Jax to an island in the Lost Sea, the very location where her first Mortal Kombat tournament took place a decade prior. Now abandoned, the island stood as a grim reminder of the ongoing struggle between Earthrealm and the darker forces that sought to consume it. There, they would rendezvous with Raiden, but as she waited, it dawned on her. This time, she had no plan of attack. All she knew for certain was that she had to rescue her fellow agents, no matter the cost. Her ending sees her fulfilling that mission. With the Deadly Alliance defeated, Sonya finally tracked down Kenshi, finding him badly wounded with the hook-like injuries in his ribs. She managed to bring him back to the rendezvous point and transport them both back to safety to Earthrealm. For her dedication and success in her mission, Sonya was promoted to general and given the freedom to form her own elite unit to counter new terrorist threats. However, Kenshi had learned something disturbing while in Outworld. The Red Dragon had awakened, signaling an even greater threat to come. Sonya's promotion to general is a defining moment for her character. After years of proving herself, she finally earned the highest rank in the Special Forces. It's a testament to her leadership, determination, and commitment to her comrades. Throughout the Mortal Kombat series, Sonya has been one of the most disciplined and mission-driven fighters, and her story in Deadly Alliance reinforces that no soldier gets left behind.
After the destruction of the Deadly Alliance, Sonya searched for the missing Special Forces agent Kenshi. She finally discovered him badly beaten and near death, apparently from hook-like wounds in his ribcage. She managed to return him to the rendezvous point where I transported them back to Earthrealm. Upon her return, Sonya was promoted to general and given a choice of command. She handpicked a team to deal with new terrorist threats located on Earth, while in Outworld, Special Agent Kenshi had learned of a new threat to peace. The Red Dragon had awakened.
Now, the last character I'm going to speak on is the Grandmaster himself, Sub-Zero. His story in Deadly Alliance is one of the strongest examples of character growth in the Mortal Kombat series. At the start of the game, the future of the Lin Kuei was uncertain, as Sub-Zero and Sector clashed over control of the Dragon Medallion, a powerful artifact that enhanced Sub-Zero's freezing abilities. Emerging victorious, Sub-Zero claimed the title of Grandmaster and vowed to reform the Lin Kuei into a force for good. Rather than continuing their previous ways as mercenaries for hire, he sought to restore the clan's honor and purpose. To ensure the Lin Kuei's rebirth, Sub-Zero relocated the clan to the Arctic, where he discovered an ancient temple embedded in a glacier. This temple would serve as their new home and a place where his warriors could train in peace, away from outside corruption. However, his plans for rebuilding were interrupted when Raiden approached him, seeking his aid in defeating the Deadly Alliance in Outworld. Recognizing that fighting alongside Earthrealm's champions would prove to the world that the Lin Kuei had truly changed, Sub-Zero accepted the challenge and even brought along one of his newest recruits, Frost. His ending reinforces his growth as a leader. After defeating the Deadly Alliance, he returned to the Lin Kuei temple with the gravely injured Frost. Sub-Zero still cares for his apprentice, showing his compassion and sense of responsibility as Grandmaster. Shortly afterward, Raiden himself visits the temple to personally commend Sub-Zero for his victory in Outworld and his role in protecting Earthrealm. Sub-Zero's journey is one of the best examples of maturity and redemption in the Mortal Kombat universe. From the moment we first met him, he was the more disciplined and honorable of the two Sub-Zero brothers, wanting nothing more than to restore the Lin Kuei's reputation and atone for his brother's past sins. His development from a skilled warrior to a respected leader of the Lin Kuei is a testament to his strength, humility, and commitment to justice.
After defeating the Deadly Alliance, Sub-Zero returned to the new temple of the Lin Kuei with the severely injured ninja, Frost. A short time later, I visited the temple to commend him for his victory in Outworld and to express my gratitude for all his assistance. With Sub-Zero now the Grand Master of the Lin Kuei, Earthrealm will be well protected.
Now that we've broken down the characters, let's talk about the gameplay of Deadly Alliance. This game plays completely different from any Mortal Kombat title before it. Gone are the classic high punch, low kick, and all that. Instead, the game uses 4 attack buttons labeled Attack 1 through 4, which you can remap however you like. Each of these buttons, combined with a direction on the D-pad, triggers a different move depending on your character's current fighting style. Every fighter has 3 styles, 2 hand-to-hand combat forms and 1 weapon-based style. Weapons can't be dropped like in Mortal Kombat 4, and switching combats on the fly is done with just pressing a button. Movements also change. Pressing up or down no longer makes you jump or duck. Instead, it shifts your character toward or away from the screen while keeping them facing the opponent. To actually jump or crouch, you need to press up or down with the forward or back. There's no run button, just like in MK2, and overall fights feel much more methodical. You can't just spam uppercuts to win anymore. Most moves deal only a small chunk of damage, so the focus is on regarding your opponent, pulling off juggle combos, and strategically using your weapon stances. It's a learning curve for sure. You want to spend some serious time in the conquest and practice mode. Even if you mastered all the older games, this one demands that you relearn everything. But once it clicks, controlling your fighter feels smooth as water. The game's super responsive, but it rewards skill. You gotta get good to really appreciate it. Another feature is you're actually required to make your own player profile. Unlike previous games where multiplayer stats reset after each session, here your wins, losses, and progress are permanently saved. It added a real sense of identity to how you played. Plus, these profiles are essential for unlocking features like the Crypt and Conquest modes. Now, let's talk about the Crypt. This mode has 676 unlockable coffins, each tied to one of the 6 types of currency: Sapphire, Onyx, Jade, Ruby, Gold, and Platinum. You earn these coins by playing through various modes and spend them in the Crypt to unlock all kinds of goodies. Alternate costumes, stages, hidden characters, behind the scenes content, and more. Let's look at a little bit of comic relief because Deadly Alliance didn't take itself too seriously. We got some hilarious commercial videos. Just look here.
This week on Cooking with Scorpion, learn about chopping, tenderizing, chopping, cake decorating, and chopping.
Overall, the Crypt is easily one of the best features when it comes to giving Deadly Alliance real replayability. There's just so much to unlock. Earning all these coins gives you a reason to keep grinding across every mode. Now, one mode that might have flown under the radar a bit is Conquest. While it would become a standout feature in later games, here it was more of an interactive training mode. You'd read bits of lore about the character you select while learning their moves step by step. It was a bit slower pace, but if you stuck with it, finishing Conquest unlocked the secret characters Blaze and Mocap, so definitely it had some rewards. Arcade mode also makes a return. This time around, players must battle through about 10 opponents and take on the sub-boss Moloch before reaching the end. Beating arcade mode unlocks that fighter's unique ending, and here's a nice quality of life touch. Before each match, the game actually tells you the difficulty multiplier. Unlike older entries where you'd feel the AI crank up when you try your sweep attacks or uppercuts and it suddenly stopped working, now you're given a heads up. Practice mode also returns, giving players a chance to get familiar with new characters or refine their skills with old favorites. It's a solid addition, especially with how different the gameplay feels compared to the classics. Now, one thing that might bother some longtime fans is the absence of a few iconic moves. Raiden's Torpedo, gone. Cyrax's Green Net, gone. and Scorpion's teleport punch, gone. It is definitely a weird feeling not having those staples, especially if you've been playing since the early days. Another downside is the fatalities. This time around, each character only gets one fatality. That's it. No babalities, no brutalities, no animalities, no friendships. Just one single finisher per fighter. To pull it off, you need to enter a specific fatality stance, similar to switching fighting styles. You do get more time to input the command, but for some players it feels like a bit of a step back. That said, even with these minor setbacks, Deadly Alliance still delivers solid gameplay. The replayability is there. Conquest might not be perfect, but it gets the job done. What really pulls everything together is the Crypt. All that extra content, the unlockables, hidden surprises, make grinding through the modes totally worthwhile. Now let's get into the many ways you can play this game. This game originally came out on November 22nd, 2002 for North American markets and February 14, 2003 for European markets. Deadly Alliance was released on that day for the Sony PlayStation 2, Microsoft Xbox, and Nintendo GameCube, along with the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Now, the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube would be identical on many levels. There were no major exclusivities besides the platform, so regardless of what you played, you get the same experience. Now, let's talk about the Game Boy Advance. Right off the bat, the roster took a hit, striking down to just 12 fighters. Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, Li Mei, Scorpion, Sonya, Kenshi, Sub-Zero, Kano, Kung Lao, Frost, Jax, and Katana. While it was significantly smaller than the console versions, the game still managed to retain much of the core gameplay that made Deadly Alliance stand out. The character cuts were likely due to technical limitations, but the remaining lineup still offered a decent variety. One of the biggest changes in this version was the simplified fighting system. On consoles, characters had 3 fighting styles, 2 hand-to-hand and 1 weapon base, but here it was reduced to just 2 hand-to-hand styles per fighter. The weapon styles were completely removed, likely due to the Game Boy Advance's limited control scheme, which only had 2 face buttons, A and B. Despite this, the gameplay still felt smooth, and the developers did a solid job translating Mortal Kombat signature combat to a handheld format. Combos and special moves still require precise inputs, keeping some of the depth intact. Fatalities also made the cut, but just like in the console versions, each character only had 1. While that was already stepped down from previous MK games, it was still pretty impressive to see fully animated fatalities on a handheld system. Visually, Deadly Alliance and the Game Boy Advance used 2D sprites for characters while attempting to replicate the 3D feel of the console versions. The backgrounds had a pseudo 3D look, adding some depth to the fights. Some players found the graphics a bit rough or muddy, but considering the hardware's limitations, it was a respectable effort to bring a full-fledged MK experience to a portable system. The last port I need to talk about is Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition, which dropped on August 25th, 2003, exclusively for the Game Boy Advance in North America. This version serves as a spin-off of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, featuring additional characters while maintaining similar gameplay and graphics to its predecessor. Each fighter has 2 fighting styles that can be swapped at any time with the press of a button, along with unique special moves, and unlike the previous Game Boy Advance port, 2 fatalities per character. One is a standard fatality while the other one is a weapon fatality, making this version the only one to include 2 finishing moves per character, even surpassing the console editions in that regard. The gameplay remains fluid, though the graphics took a slight hit compared to the previous Deadly Alliance Game Boy Advance port. The Crypt in Tournament Edition was also expanded to feature more coffins to unlock. However, instead of 6 different currency types like in the console version, this port streamlined just 2, Ruby and Gold. Interestingly, the first Game Boy Advance Deadly Alliance port only used gold currency, so this was a step up in variety. It also included minigames like Test Your Might and Test Your Sight. However, it lacked certain modes like Conquest, which was replaced by Survival mode. This trade-off made sense given the Game Boy Advance's constraints, but slightly reduced the overall depth of single-player content. As for the roster, the Tournament Edition includes Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, Scorpion, Bo' Rai Cho, Cyrax, Draman, Su Hao, Johnny Cage, Mavado, Nitara, Raiden, and Reptile. But what made this port stand out was the addition of 3 exclusive characters: Serena, who was last seen in Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, Noob Saibot, and Sector. Overall, Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition was a solid way to experience the game on handheld devices, improving on the previous Game Boy Advance port with more fighters, additional fatalities, and an expanded crypt. While it still had its limitations, it was a welcome upgrade for Mortal Kombat fans on the go. So, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance was received overwhelmingly positive. It had revitalized this franchise since it was struggling since the late 90s. Critics and fans alike praised the game for its innovations, polished gameplay, and bold narrative choices. The introduction of new mechanics such as distinct fighting styles and weapon-based combat was seen as a major step forward for the series, helping it transition into a new era of competitive fighting games. Jeffrey Dunham of IGN highlighted the game's reinvention of the Mortal Kombat formula, particularly its implementation of true 3-dimensional fighting and a deeper, more intuitive combo system. Similarly, GameSpot's Jeff Gerstmann commended the fluid animations and graphics, while noting that the roster offered a strong mix of returning fan favorites and intriguing new characters. The fatalities were also celebrated for their return to gritty brutality, with many critics pointing out how they successfully recaptured the series' violent roots in a way that felt fresh and impactful. The Game Boy Advance version received special recognition for its quality as a handheld adaptation. Craig Harris of IGN lauded it for its polish and attention to detail, calling it an excellent single-player experience despite the hardware limitations. The Game Boy Advance's more simplified mechanics and reduced roster were seen as necessary compromises that still delivered an engaging experience. Fans also responded enthusiastically to the game. Many considered it a return to form after divisive entries like Mortal Kombat 4 and Special Forces. The darker storyline was praised for raising the stakes and making the villains Quan Chi and Shang Tsung feel like legitimate threats. This narrative decision added weight to the game's title and set up the future conflicts in the series. One of the most celebrated aspects of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance was its reinvention of the franchise. The introduction of 3 distinct fighting styles per character, 2 unarmed and 1 weapon-based, added depth and variety to the combat system. This feature was praised for making each fighter feel unique and giving players more strategic options during battles. The ability to switch between styles mid-combo also impressed fans. As it added a layer of complexity to the gameplay while maintaining accessibility for newcomers. The graphics were another highlight, with detailed character models, fluid animations, and richly designed environments. Fans particularly enjoyed the attention to detail in stages like the Lin Kuei headquarters, where ice cracked underfoot during fights, adding realism to the experience. The blood effects were also a standout feature, with bruises and injuries appearing on the characters as the fights progressed, enhancing the game's signature brutality. Fatalities returned in gory fashion, satisfying longtime fans who had missed their impact in previous games. The crypt system was widely loved for its replay value. Unlocking coffins filled with alternate costumes, secret characters, artwork, and other extras provided play with a sense of progression and discovery. Conquest mode also offered an engaging way to learn each character's moves while earning coins for unlocking content. These features, combined with the addictive gameplay, made Deadly Alliance a game that players could return to repeatedly. Despite its many strengths, Deadly Alliance wasn't without its flaws. One common criticism was the decision to limit each character to only 1 fatality. While the fatalities themselves were well executed, fans felt that reducing them to just 1 per fighter diminished a key aspect of the series' identity. Many players also lamented changes made to certain characters that drastically altered their effectiveness in combat. For instance, Cyrax, a fan favorite from earlier games, was considered one of the worst characters in this installment due to the removal of key moves that made him formidable. The combo system also received mixed reactions. While some appreciated its simplicity and accessibilities, others found it too rigid and limiting compared to more complex systems in rival fighting games like Tekken or Soul Calibur. Hardcore fighting game enthusiasts criticized the resilience on dial-up combos and felt that the stances were gimmicky rather than seamlessly integrated into gameplay. The lack of features like counter hits, tech rolls, and advanced ground mechanics led some players to view Deadly Alliance as shallow compared to other contemporary 3D fighters. Another point of contention was the story mode's lack of originality. While fans appreciated bold narrative choices, others felt that the overarching plot was formulaic and failed to innovate beyond standard Earthrealm versus Outworld tropes. In summary, gamers love Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance for its fresh approach to gameplay mechanics, improved graphics, and a plethora of unlockable content that kept them engaged for hours. However, criticisms about limited fatalities, rigid combos, and shallow mechanics revealed areas where the game fell short for hardcore fighting game enthusiasts. Despite these shortcomings, Deadly Alliance remains a pivotal entry in the franchise that successfully reignited interest in Mortal Kombat after years of stagnation. If I'm being honest, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance was a blast to play. It took me a moment to get used to the controls, especially since I had just came off playing earlier games. But once I got the hang of it, I had a great time. I first played this game as a kid, and back then it was an exciting experience. The PS2 was still brand new, and everyone was hyped to play anything with great graphics and fun gameplay, two areas where this game really shines. It was fun to sit back and try out different characters and unlock everyone to see how their stories played out. If you were a longtime fan of the series, there was definitely some excitement and maybe a little bit of anxiety about how these new characters would play. And it's worth mentioning that this game introduced several elements that would become staples of the series. For example, in Mortal Kombat X, every fighter has 3 different fighting styles to choose from, something Deadly Alliance experimented with first. Now, at the time, Conquest Mode was actually fun to dive into, but looking back, I'd say it aged the worst compared to Deception and Armageddon. It's got that GTA 3 effect, where GTA 3 was groundbreaking, but once Vice City and San Andreas came out, it got overshadowed. And that's exactly what happened here. The next game would outshine Deadly Alliance in almost every way, making it feel a little obsolete in retrospect. Even the story, while bold and engaging, ultimately serves as a setup for the future. Spoiler alert, the true ending is basically the intro to the next game. But that's what this entry needed to do. It was the Phantom Menace of Mortal Kombat, setting up the franchise for the future while laying the groundwork for what was to come. I don't have an issue with that, but I can see how it might make the game feel less essential today. That said, don't let that take away from the fact that Deadly Alliance was still a great entry that breathed new life into the series after Special Forces and Mythologies. Even now, I can see myself picking up a controller and jumping back in. It's truly a time capsule in Mortal Kombat's legacy. This entire era of Mortal Kombat hinged on this game being successful, and it was. The fact that it skipped arcades actually helped, because the mystery of not knowing what to expect built real anticipation. And with new modes and fresh gameplay, it met expectations. The only real drawback, each character had just one fatality. The game added variety in some areas, but cut back in others. But that just shows this game was built on baby steps, earning back the trust of fans, and it succeeded. If you're a Mortal Kombat fan, chances are this game holds a special place in your heart, just like it does for me. And if you never had the chance to play it, I truly hope this video inspires you to give it a shot. The story alone makes it worth it. If you made it to the end of this video, I want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new to the channel, hitting that subscribe button would mean a lot. We are on the road to 5,000 subscribers, getting closer to my goal of 10K by the end of the year. Next week, we're back with the Rockstar Takeover, diving into Max Payne 2. And in 2 weeks, we return to the Mortal Kombat Takeover with Mortal Kombat Deception. If that sounds like something you be into, make sure to ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. This is the Retro Phantom, signing out.